So when they get into that traffic jam or whatever, and they feel it, and they're kind of eyeing everyone up, and they see the Impala, and they all get out, guns drawn, civilians everywhere, and they're kind of just like waiting for something to pop off. Like they walk up in the Impala, and they're all just very much like, nope, don't do it.
Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Oh, yeah.
We have started our filmography for the next director here that we're going to get to.
Mhm.
And we've already done a couple movies, so we're going to start our next one here. So this movie, of course, was directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it was released September the 18th of 2015. Today, the Panel Bros are going to be doing a breakdown for Sicario.
Oh, yeah. As I was talking to you off the air, this movie is just tension, man.
Oh, yeah.
This movie, Denis just does such a great job with building tension. He's done it in his previous films, whether we talked about Prisoners, whether we talked about Enemy. He does a really good job with character work and building tension, not only in a scene, but through the entire movie. The score comes into play, his cinematography comes into play, the performances come into play. But this movie is just, it's so intense. And I always look forward to watching it. So I was so excited because, Denis' filmography is fantastic. And Sicario is clearly one of my favorites when it comes to Denis. So anytime we get to watch it, I'm excited, and I'm excited to talk about it. And the morality of the characters in this movie is something that I look forward to talking about.
At this stage in Villeneuve's career, he was doing more so thrillers.
Mhm.
So you could say Prisoners was like a crime thriller, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. And then, we have Enemy, that's a psychological thriller. And now we're here with, I saw this listed, Sicario, as an action thriller.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I mean, now we look at him, we think science fiction,
Mhm.
blockbusters. But early on in his career, Villeneuve was just like, "Hey, I want to do these thrillers, but I'm going to do a different type of thriller each
Yeah.
time." And oh man, this one was just intense. Like you said, just
Yeah.
tension. You're just waiting for something to happen,
Yep.
and you have that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, "Oh no, this is not going well right now." And throughout the whole movie, we're going to talk about it here. You see just Emily Blunt just selling every single scene like something awful is going to happen. And you got
Yeah.
this score playing in the background there.
Yeah, Denis does a good job throughout the movie, where obviously we'll talk about it. Emily Blunt's character is the audience, and like her, we're kept in the dark for a lot of the movie. So we're going along for the ride, and we're only getting bits and pieces here and there, little breadcrumbs. And so the whole time, like we're kind of like, we're not sure what's the next thing that's going to happen, because we're not entirely sure exactly what this team is doing yet. Like we're getting little things here and there, and Denis does a great job of keeping us on our toes. So just like Kate's character, we're kind of just like, all right, what's going on right now? Like what, like this can get really bad, and it's like what are we doing? So it made the movie that much more exciting.
All right, well, let's get started here. Alrighty. So just an FYI here. The word Sicario means hitman or gunman in Spanish, and it also means paid assassin in Italian. So, little FYI there. We have our opening scene. Before I did that, I wanted to little screenshot here. So we are in Chandler, Arizona. We have FBI Special Agents Kate Macer, played by Emily Blunt, and Reggie Wayne, played by Daniel Kaluuya. And they lead a raid on a Sonora cartel safe house where they discover dozens of decaying corpses hidden in the walls. And outside, an explosive booby trap kills 2 police officers. So
Yep.
that's our opening scene. It's really intense when they go in. Like they're just driving up. We can tell there's going to be some type of situation here. They there's no battering ram. We're just going to drive the vehicle right through the house because this is
Yep.
a pretty um, intense operation here. So once things start heating up, Kate almost gets hit, and because someone behind the door is waiting for her with a gun there, and they ask the question, why do you shoot? There's no one else here, because
Yeah.
they're like, what do they have to hide? So Reggie sees the hole in the wall,
Yep.
and then they rip a bigger hole to reveal the bodies, and everyone in the scene sells the moment because of the smell. These are decaying bodies.
Yeah.
The house probably stunk already, but then once you rip open the wall, it was probably really awful.
Yeah.
Um, we see Kate and another officer. They vomit outside, and then we have the supervisor come up, Dave Jennings, um, Victor Garber from the Arrowverse
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yep.
He comes, and Reggie is excused. Um, just some information: Reggie is a rookie. Then we see the hazmat suits, and then there's bodies everywhere
Yeah.
in between the walls. It's gross, and not just one room. We switch outside to Reggie, he himself has now begun vomiting,
Yep.
and it's a combination of the smell and also the visual of these
Yeah.
bodies. It's gross, and the outside, the officers are asking for bolt cutters to open a trap door into the shed. And the second Kate goes outside, it blows up. So we have our first big action moment here. And, we see Reggie on his knees. We see another officer crawling away from the blast. And if I'm not mistaken, you saw a piece of his scalp missing. And
Oh, dude, you see limbs. Like you just see like a
yeah,
hand at one point detached from an arm. Like it's Denis opens strong, and
right.
it kind of lets us know like the world we're going to enter. Um because the world we're going to enter is very ugly in this movie, and Denis wastes no time in showing that. Again, as you mentioned, they bust into the house, and there's gunfire, but the moment you see the bodies in the wall, you get a like stark reminder of just how ugly this is going to be. And it's very grotesque, as you mentioned. We can't obviously smell or anything like that, so we just get the visuals. So to see the bodies and to see how grotesque it looked, you can only imagine what it would be like to be in that type of environment. So it makes sense. Everybody's getting sick. No, like nobody can handle that. Reggie being, fairly new to the squad, and she's like, hey, she even tells me, hey, like you can take a minute, like, go. And then once you think the situation is under control, Denis reminds you that again in this world, like like there's a lot of chaos and like order and control, and whether you have it or whether you don't. And you have that big explosion, and you lose some officers, and you see limbs on the ground, and again you're just kind of like, all right, like Denis not holding back at all, like in showcasing like how ugly this world is that we're about to enter.
Yeah, and so it's really odd. The bodies, they're in bags, but
Mm-hmm.
they're transparent.
Yeah.
So we didn't go full on horror to see the bodies themselves, but it almost by holding back a little bit, it kind of the less is more approach where you're just
Yeah.
imagining in your mind just these people were bagged and hung and they just started decaying behind all of these plastic bags. It was really gross.
Yeah.
Um,
It was very off-putting to see.
yeah, and he did just enough. He could have went um, full on Saving Private Ryan with
Oh
outside
yeah.
when the bomb went out, but all you saw was the one officer crawling, and a piece of his scalp was missing there,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and then you saw the limbs, and it was like, but Villeneuve does this thing with smoke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke, fog, later on sand, where
Yep.
visual. So you couldn't really see what was going on. And then before you had a chance to absorb the scene, we quick cut to Kate taking a
Yep.
shower, washing the blood
Yeah.
out of her head.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, pretty intense scene to open the movie. So yes, we do shift over to Kate. She's taking a shower. She's washing blood out of her hair, and then you see her picking shrapnel out of her scalp
Yeah.
from whatever it was, from the explosion. So clearly, the opening scene, just lots of anxiety here. The score swells the entire time. It will continue swelling throughout the movie whenever you have these intense moments. Um, and we already mentioned it here. Whenever you hear that, it's almost comical. The score swells. You see Emily Blunt have this concerned look on her face, and then you're like, "Oh no, what's going to
Yep.
happen now?"
Yeah. The score is haunting. Like it puts you right in the mood that Denis wants you in. And like you said, like that score aligned with Emily's performance, like yeah, you feel uneasy the moment you hear it. You just immediately feel uneasy.
Following the raid, Kate is recommended for and joins a joint task force overseen by CIA officer Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin,
Mm-hmm.
and the secretive Alejandro Gillick, played by the great Benicio del Toro. Great actor.
Yeah,
We're going to
dude,
talk about him. Yeah.
we're gonna talk about him in this movie. Yep.
Yeah. So, um, Alejandro is a Mexican ex prosecutor, a lawyer turned CIA trained assassin. And their mission is to flush out and apprehend Sonar Lieutenant Manuel Diaz, currently operating and hiding in the United States. So we do have this plane ride here, and Matt is calm and relaxed to the point that he's just going to take a nap on the plane. And Kate, she begins having her suspicions very early about this whole operation.
Yep.
If you remember when they interviewed her, they asked, "Are you married?"
You married?
And she pauses and she's like,
Yeah.
"Divorced." It's like, "Do you have any
Kids?
kids?" Right. No.
No.
So, I mean, we know now they ask those type of questions to find out if you're attached.
Yes, like those questions, like again, they Denis, again, I've said it before, Denis does a good job of keeping us in the dark. So we're outside the room with Kate when you see Matt and all these other people in suits talking, and we're getting small glimpses of what they're saying, but not much. So we're kind of left in the dark. So when she walks in and Matt's, Josh Brolin's got this very laid back kind of persona. Like he's got sandals on, he's just like chewing gum obnoxiously, just very relaxed, which is great because it's counter to her, like very like she's very strict, trying to like get as focused as possible. And when he asked her those questions, I was like, oh man, like we're good, like something, like we're going somewhere very dangerous. And they have an opportunity to take Reggie as well, but when they bring up his files, this was important to me. This was really important because they're like, oh, he's a rookie, he's green, but he's really good. Like the kid is really good on the field. And when they bring up his education and everything, Matt realizes, oh, he's a lawyer, no lawyers. And when he said no lawyers, I was like, uh-oh. Like he was like, nope, I don't want any lawyers on this. Just give me the girl. And I was like, why? I was like, oh, well, like, what is this? And then when you get to the plane, as you mentioned, Matt is just like so relaxed, lays down, takes a nap. And the whole time she's still like asking questions. She's observing Alejandro from a distance, and she's kind of just like trying to get a read on him, but she can't get it.
Nope.
She's trying to ask him questions, and Matt's being very vague about things. Oh, we're going here. I thought we were going there, and he kind of just mumbles like, yeah, like he's not giving her anything. So again, like she's going on this plane, she's not even entirely sure where she's going. So you can feel the sweat, beating from her head a little bit as she's pretty scared coming into this because she's not sure. But Benicio del Toro, Alejandro's presence is just like you feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to your point, on the plane there, Kate sees Alejandro's he's sleeping, but his arm's twitching, and then he
Yeah.
startles himself awake because of a bad dream. And then they start talking, because she wants to get to know him a little bit. Like, I've never met this man before. I need to know what's going on. So when they do get there for the meeting, Kate continues to watch and listen to everyone, and she's just staring at Alejandro like she wants to figure this guy out. She keeps attempting to ask him questions to find out about him, and then you find out about Colombia. He mentions Colombia, and he just drops this line. He says, "Listen, nothing will make sense to your American ears, and you will doubt everything that we do. But in the end, you will understand."
You will understand. Like again, like I was like when he did the whole like you're not going to understand what we do. From that moment, I'm kind of like, okay, like how far are we willing to go, right? Like the movie still hasn't filled us in completely, but I'm questioning like how much is going to be done by the book, because immediately she's getting pushback She's getting pushback. She's not getting responses that she wants. She's questioning everything. She's being argumentative with Matt when she's not getting the answers that she wants. And he's like, "You're not gonna understand." He's like, "You're not gonna get it." But in the end, when it's all said and done, then you'll get it. And I'm like, all right, so she's gonna see things that she's not used to seeing.
Perhaps some foreshadowing to
Yeah,
what happens later on.
yeah,
So,
like she's gonna see some stuff that she's not necessarily used to seeing, and obviously they're going into cartels and stuff. So this is a little different for her. And I understand why she took it too, because they do bring up the point that she has to volunteer for the job. And she does make it a point to ask, like, will we be able to get the people responsible that killed the officers in that explosion? And Matt's like, for the people who really made that call, yeah. So you understand why she's there, because generally to be that, I don't want to say argumentative, but for her to question so much, you'd be like, wow, like if then just leave. But at the end of the day, she still wants to get the people responsible that cost those lawmen their lives. But she's just taken back by all the mysterious nature of what's going on still.
So, she's asking questions. Is he CIA? No. He's a DOD advisor. And she's like, no, he isn't.
No,
like
she's
like,
no,
right
he's not.
through
Yep.
it. She doesn't trust the situation, rightfully so, because as you said, they're being vague to her on purpose, because, well, we will get to it, but because,
Yeah, we'll find out.
This operation isn't necessarily clean to the point that he says it. He Alejandro tells her, he's like, hey, listen, don't trust everything you see. Careful who you talk to. Like he's warning her, so. All righty. Gonna get to our next scene here. This to me is probably the most memorable scene in the movie, and it happens pretty early on.
This was one of the most tense scenes in the movie for me.
Yeah. So they're at the border, and the team, which includes Delta Force operators, deputy U.S. Marshals, and CIA personnel, travels to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, to extradite Diaz's brother, Guillermo. Now, while crossing the El Paso-Juarez border, the team is ambushed by low-level cartel hitmen, whom the Americans swiftly kill. During the gunfight, Kate is forced to kill a federal police officer and is left visibly disturbed by the violence. So let's break this scene down here.
Yeah.
So the scene, for me, it was intense, and it was a standout for me, probably the biggest standout in the movie for me. The entire highway is bumper to bumper, understandably so, because they're crossing the border. Now, when they jump out of the car, she stays because she's still proceeding with caution. And they, everybody around her, they come out guns drawn to both cars. Now, mind you, there's civilians everywhere here.
Oh,
and they're coming
all
out
over,
guns drawn, to the red Impala, and the car behind it. And the men inside are armed, and when one exits and raises his weapon, then him and everybody inside the car gets shot, and then they do the same thing to the car behind him. It's getting heavy and fast. Kate continues to stay back and wait, and her gun is drawn because she's like, what's happening? Why are people getting, sprayed like this, like just out of nowhere? She's been concerned and downright suspicious this entire time. And she says to herself, what the F are we doing?
Yep.
And if she didn't catch that federal officer with the gun drawn on her, she herself would have died.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she shot because she had no choice.
Right. And for all he knew, she was a civilian with a gun. He couldn't have known she was with them. We don't know. Or maybe he's flipped and he was somebody else. They never really explained that one scene. We're left to decide there. She eventually has a blowout with Matt. This is illegal. There's civilians. What the hell is going on? So, Ricardo, if you could share your thoughts, as far as the scene goes.
Yeah, this scene was great. Tension right away because they're going in, and one of the things about the scene too is when they're driving, you see bodies hanging from an overpass, like just bodies that have been stripped naked, and dismembered, and it's a haunting visual. And they kind of, the guy in the front seat is kind of like, oh, like, they do nice work here. And you're kind of like, what? And he's like, yeah, they do that to people to kind of give off the illusion that these people did something really bad, you know, that they crossed the line, and this is what will happen to you if you cross the line, you know. And it's just like, oh my god, like what a horrifying visual. So when they get into that traffic jam or whatever, and they feel it, and they're kind of eyeing everyone up, and they see the Impala, and they all get out, guns drawn, civilians everywhere, and they're kind of just like waiting for something to pop off. Like they walk up in the Impala, and they're all just very much like, nope, don't do it. Don't do it. And they're just waiting. It's like they're willing to like walk, they're willing to like just say, hey, we're just all gonna go on our day. You know what I mean? We're gonna go on our way. Don't do anything stupid. And the people in the Impala are just like, nope, and they draw, and everyone just starts going off, and it's just absolute chaos, dude. It's absolute chaos. And I can't imagine what that must have been like for Kate's character, obviously, because again, she's doing everything by the book. This is clearly something you would never do ever in with that many civilians around.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're talking about men, women, and children all around that are just sitting in their cars trying to get by, and you got everyone out there with rifles, pistols, and you have people in the Impala, people in other vehicles, and you have our team, and she's in the car, and I felt so bad because she's seeing this, and she's like, what is going on? And then you see an agent coming up behind her with the gun drawn, and if she didn't react as quickly as she did, she could have died. Another member of her team could have died, and she had to take the shot. And as soon as she takes the shot, she lets it out. She's like, guys, what the F? Like, she's just like, she's so taken back. But the whole scene is just so great with building this tension. And again, there's this understanding of like, we are not playing by the rules anymore. This is almost equivalent, I guess, to what people would use the phrase as like the Wild West, where like she's so used to things being done a certain way, and we're not there anymore. You know what I mean? Like, what's that? Like, we're not in Kansas anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, no, like this is very different. You know what I mean? You have to operate very differently here. And she even says something about like, you know, they just left these bodies on the street, like, and Matt, I believe it's Matt, says like they're not even going to make the papers, like it's nothing, like this is nothing here, like this happens, like people are just going to continue driving by like it's nothing. And again, it's a reminder of how ugly it is in this particular place. And when she argues with Matt, and she's like, this is illegal, what's going on, and he yells at her back, and he's like, listen, Kate, here's the deal. This is why you're here. Get your ear to the ground. You're going to learn. This is what we're here to do. You know what I mean? And he's like, get your act together. And he goes and walks off inside. And it's just like, dude, like she knows she's in over her head. She's absolutely in over her head. She still doesn't know 100% why she's there, because she doesn't operate this way. So why are they so invested or interested in having her there? And we will find out shortly. But up to at this point, she's still like, what the heck is going on, man?
Yeah, and they don't give us any indication that something like this is going to happen. We're thinking, oh, they're just trying to get over the border.
Yep.
You know, then the minute we see the red Impala, that's when things start going south. You know, Del Toro draws his gun while inside the car.
Oh, yeah.
Before, you know, something else happens outside. And, you know, to your point, yes, you know, there's civilians everywhere. Like, they're taking a chance that this could turn into a firefight. If they hadn't gotten there before the henchmen saw them, they're willing to start the firefight. Do you think the gunmen themselves will care about those civilians?
Nope.
So,
nope.
You know,
and I think that's the big red flag for her, is that there was no distinct way of differentiating between her team and the people in the Impala, because they're both opening fire on civilians. Like, how we don't operate that way. Like, we don't. And that's taken her.
Yeah. And well, thankfully it didn't get to that, but in my mind I was thinking, oh my gosh, are we going to start seeing innocent people get killed here?
Yeah,
like
it was possible.
Really nervous, really nervous watching the scene. But to me, this is like such a standout scene, if not the standout scene for me in the movie, because we already had that incredible opening scene, but now it lets us know this is the type of stuff that these people are going to have to do in order to accomplish the goals they want to accomplish. So back in the US, Alejandro tortures Guillermo and learns that the cartel uses a tunnel near Sonora to smuggle drugs. Meanwhile, Kate confronts Matt, who reveals that the real mission is to disrupt Diaz's drug operations. so he can lead them to his boss, drug lord Fausto Alarcon. Unnerved, Kate asks Reggie, her partner, to join her for support. And that's the smart move because she's alone, and
She's
now
completely alone.
she's like, no, I need my partner. Um,
Yeah.
so we have Reggie here. I did mention played by Daniel Kaluuya, and he's got such a great delivery with this movie, and a lot of his movies he's got a great delivery. But he says it. There's in the dark and the way that they're treating us,
Yeah.
and he tells Matt, let me know our walk. He's like, well, we didn't ask you, so you're welcome to walk. And then she's like, well, if he walks, I'll walk too.
Yeah.
So now they're like, all right, well, I guess we gotta, well, what do you want to know? And he says everything.
Yep. He's like
And
everything.
he's like, just tell the truth. And Mark keeps being difficult due to the fact that Reggie's the lawyer, like you mentioned earlier,
Yep.
because then that's a liability because we're doing illegal things and we have a lawyer on the team,
Yep.
well, we have a former lawyer who's knowingly doing it, and now we have this other lawyer who will not want to do it.
Yep.
So that's the dilemma that they put themselves in here. We have another scene here involving the bank. The task force raids a bank used to launder Diaz's money. And after finding financial evidence, Kate and Reggie want to start a legal case against Diaz, but are ordered to stand down to avoid jeopardizing the operation. And if you remember, Mark was telling Kate, don't go in the bank because then she'll
Yeah.
be on camera in the bank.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
ties her to him and all the stuff that they're doing.
And she doesn't listen. This scene was great because again, we're in a situation where you have two people who operate very differently. And she's like, hey, let's do this. We can take him in. We can do that. And he's like, no, he's going to lawyer up. This is going to happen. They'll put a freeze on the money for a little bit, but then it'll go in and nothing's going to change. And she goes, yeah, but we can get him off the street for a little bit. We can do this. And he was like, no, absolutely not, Kate. Don't go in the bank, Kate. And what does Kate do? She goes right into the bank. And I'm just like, like we're going to get this butting of heads. It's going to make this thing really complicated.
So we have our scene here in the bar. Alrighty. So a rare shot of Emily Blunt's character smiling.
I like their relationship. Their relationship is fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to share this here. So we do have a bar scene here, and we established some kind of relationship with Kate and Reggie. Not a romantic one, but just partners, friends.
Yeah.
There was a really cool scene back at the apartment where he sees her and she's just wearing her bra, and he goes, "You need a new bra."
Yeah, like there's this great banter between them that, at certain times the way like he picks on her like an older brother would, like when they go out, when they're at the bar, he's like, oh, like your eyebrows are a mess, dude. Like, what's up with your eyebrows? And what, you only wear one gray shirt? Like, you probably smell like you. And like, she's like, oh, stop it. You sound like my mom. And like, there's this friendly banter, and it shows you why it's so great that he's there, because again, she is stressed out. She has no idea what's going on. Now she's got someone there with her who's going to stay by her side, is also going to fight to get as much information as possible. And for a moment of levity, like, he's there with her. So I like the relationship that they have, because it does, like you said, it's not a romantic relationship. It just shows you that they have a bond.
Right. Kaluuya has this thing that he does where it's like I don't want to call it an actor habit because that's a negative word, but he does have an actor habit where he tilts his head. Like he tilts his head like this when he's talking, and it indicates that he's either listening or trying to convey some type of emotions and such. And he does it with intensity when he's talking to Matt, when he's talking to Alejandro, when he's talking to all these people. He's like, no, I'm going to walk, or this is what we need. But then he turns it down a little bit when he's with his partner, and he can be just as charming as he can be intense. So, shout out to Daniel Kaluuya, another great actor here. So, at the bar, Reggie introduces Kate to his friend Ted, played by your boy Jon Bernthal.
Jon Bernthal, baby.
Oh yeah.
John is a great actor, and this was at that period where he was just showing up in everything, and I was so happy. It didn't matter if it was a big role or a small role. I was always excited to see Jon Bernthal show up.
Yeah, he had just left The Walking Dead
Mm-hmm.
so he could get more work, and clearly at the time he was the standout actor on The Walking Dead.
Showed up everywhere, man.
Yeah, so he was in a lot of different things. Um, Ted is a Phoenix police officer. Um, and we see everybody having fun for like a few minutes here. You know, they're
Mhm.
dancing, they're having some drinks. Um, this leads to Kate and Ted becoming intimate at her apartment, and then she realizes Ted is working with the cartel. She
Yeah,
sees a rubber band attached to his keychain that matches the rubber band on the laundered money that they
yep.
recovered before. Big mistake on his part.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too. I was like, bro, really? And obviously, I guess he didn't think that, anybody was gonna make that connection, but it was like, bro, that's a bad move.
Yeah. So in the ensuing struggle, Ted begins to strangle Kate before Alejandro appears and subdues him. So it was a good struggle. You're rooting for Kate, the entire time because she knows it's him, and I think he figures out that he was made at that moment because when she goes to reach
Yeah.
for his gun, he's like, "Hey, stop, 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 stop!" I don't know if he's still trying to talk her out of it. You
There
know,
he does a good job because like you said, like the whole time he looks back at the rubber band and he's kind of put two and two together. He's not sure what she's really gonna do. And the whole time he's like, all right, just calm down. Kate, talk to me, calm down.
right?
And she starts like pulling away, and he's like, hey, what's happening? When she goes for her gun, that's when he goes full panic mode. And the entire time he's begging her, stop. He's like, stop it, please stop, please. And he starts begging her to please stop. And even as he's strangling her, it does it from a place where he almost hates that he has to do it
Right.
because he's got that like breakdown in his voice, um almost to like a crying effect where he's like, please, like, please, please, and you hear the crack in his voice, just begging her to stop. And if Alejandro didn't show up, man, that was it for her.
Yeah, and on my first watch, I'm thinking she's gone.
Yeah,
you
dude,
know,
like it was it.
yeah. So you're rooting for her, and you're hoping that something happens to stop her. And thankfully, Alejandro shows up to save her. Reggie's apologetic over the situation. She says it's okay because he thought Ted was a friend.
Yeah.
Um, Alejandro and what have I been calling him? Mark or Matt?
Matt. I think you called him Matt.
I did. For one moment, I called him Mark before, so I need to correct myself. His name is
Oh,
Matt.
okay. Yeah, that's
Apologies if you heard me say Mark at any point. His name is Matt. So, um, Alejandro and Matt brutally beat and threatened Ted to coerce him into revealing the names of other officers working for Diaz. The beating happened off screen,
mhm.
and
Oh,
Alejandro
they
does it.
beat him bad, dude.
Yeah,
They
he
beat
does.
him
He does his
bad.
thing, and I didn't mention it before. When he tortured the other gentleman, apparently a part of his torture technique is invading your personal space.
Oh yeah.
He just gets really up on you to, you know, it's a part of his thing, and
Yes.
he did it again to Bernthal's character in the car. So I said, Del Toro, you made a choice there.
Yeah, and it is intimidating. Like when he does it the first time, he kicks the guy's ankles out, and he just gets as close as he can
Right.
to
He
him,
straddles him.
straddles him, and he's like, "All right, Papa, now we're gonna do some stuff," and he tortures him. And the same thing happens with John Berthal's character Ted, where like Ted is like, "Listen, I will tell you, but you have to guarantee that my daughter's gonna be safe. Like you have to guarantee that." And he goes, "You want to hear the truth?" And he gets into the car and just completely takes over all the space, and he's right up on Ted, and maybe he's doing something off screen that we don't see, but or like driving his elbow, but he's
There you go.
right on top of Ted.
Yeah.
And Ted's like, okay, okay, okay.
So following the scene, we get a moment with Alejandro where Kate thanks him for saving her. She's been suspicious of him this whole time, and the irony of it is that now she's thanking him because he saved
Mhm.
her life. Um, but let's be clear here. It's not like he's in the clear now just because he saved her. This is a man that tortures people for the DOD,
Man,
that
look,
we've seen so far.
like we're not supposed to do that again. And she brought that up at a point. They were like, oh, he gave up that information just because you guys asked him. And he's like, Matt's just like, what do you want me to say? Like, they tortured that dude. And yeah, and I thought that there was something that was really, I hung on to it. There was this scene where Alejandro's looking at Kate and he goes, "You remind me of somebody that was very close to me," but he doesn't say who. He's like, "You remind me of somebody very close to me." And she's kind of beating herself up a little bit, and it's the only time, like you said, that Alejandro's kind of like being somewhat of a sympathetic person. It doesn't put him in the clear, but he's just like, hey, like, don't blame yourself. Because she goes, "Oh my God, I almost had sex with my hitman." He was like, "He was no hitman. Don't feel bad." He goes, "He just wanted to know what you knew." That's pretty much it. They don't want you, they want us. He kind of like tried to alleviate some of that, pressure she was putting on herself. And he was like, "You remind me of someone, special to me." But yeah, he said, don't worry about it. So again, we get a little bit more from Alejandro at that point, but again, not too much yet.
After the team learns that Diaz has been recalled to Mexico, they prepare to raid the tunnel near Nogales. Matt reveals to Kate and Reggie that their involvement is a technical necessity, as the CIA is not allowed to operate alone within the U.S. borders. There it is.
There it is. That's the only reason they're there.
Yep. An angered Reggie tells Kate they should leave, but she insists on staying to learn about the mission's true purpose. Reggie's sitting there with her. "We should walk." And she's like, "We can't walk. I have to know why and what they involved us in." Like, she is bent on figuring this out.
Yeah, because they're involved. Like even if they leave now, Kate has been involved from the jump, and she needs to be aware of what is happening. When Matt tells them pretty much the only reason you're there is because by law we need you here. We technically don't want you here, but we need you here in order for us to operate this way. And it's like, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like, they've been kept in the dark for so long because obviously they couldn't tell them what they were doing. And she still doesn't know. And Reggie's like, "Dude, let's just go. Like, let's bail on this, man." And she's like, "No, I need to know why. I need to know why they lied. I need to know why they need us here." She's bent on finding that out.
As a gunfight with the cartel begins, Kate follows Alejandro into Mexico. She sees him abduct Silvio, a corrupt Sonora police officer working as one of Diaz's drug mules. So shocker, the local police are corrupt as well.
Yep.
And Kate attempts to arrest Alejandro, but he shoots her twice in her Kevlar vest to subdue her, angrily telling her to never point a gun at him again before driving away with Silvio at gunpoint. So thankfully, Alejandro didn't kill her.
Yeah.
But this confirms
He could have.
Correct, because she was
Absolutely could have.
Yeah, because I'm not too versed on gun knowledge and such, but I know that obviously a bulletproof vest is there to stop you, but it's very painful to get shot, even with the vest on, and it's going to knock the wind out of you. There's going to be contusions, possibly broken bones. Like, the force of a bullet is so strong, and people don't understand this. So to say that vest stops it, it's like it's only a mere few inches from your body in itself. So your body's doing some of the work too,
Oh yeah, and they made sure that we saw there wasn't a great distance between them at all.
Right.
They're relatively close. And again, he has Silvio, and they're getting ready to go, and she's like, "Nope, drop the gun." And she points the gun at him, and he pops her twice, pop, right in the cap, right in the vest, and drops her. Walks up on her, and like you said, he goes, "Don't you ever point a gun at me again." He goes, "Catch your breath and go back with the team and finish the job."
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like he could have killed her if he wanted to, and he's like, "Nope, this is not about you, okay?
Right.
Catch your breath and go back up there and get your
and
job."
he's doing this on good faith here, because clearly she saw him doing something he shouldn't have done. So he's thinking he scared her enough to be like, "Just get out of my way." On the U.S. side of the border, Kate confronts Matt. She punches him. Everybody jumps on top of her and Reggie, because Reggie's like, "Oh, what's happening here now?" She's winded from the bullets hitting her vest, and shout out to Kate, to Emily Blunt rather, for selling the moment. She's holding her side, she's breathing heavy, she doesn't let up at all, even when she's expressing herself to him. how upset she is. Matt explains the mission is part of a broader operation to revert the various drug cartels back to a single Colombian-run business that the U.S. can more easily control and work with. Alejandro, who previously worked for the Medellin cartel, was hired to assassinate Alarcon, the man responsible for ordering the murder of Alejandro's wife and daughter when he was a prosecutor in Juarez. So now we have
Yep.
a character history for Alejandro and why he's doing all these things.
Yep.
Kate's telling Matt, I'm going to tell everyone what you did. And then Matt's like, that would be a major mistake.
This was bad because she's finding out exactly what's going on. And Matt says, listen, we can't stop these drugs. We can't. For whatever reason, we'll never be able to stop it. All we can do is try to control it as much as possible. And we need to control it this way. This is how we're going to control it. This is what we're going to do. And she's like, so you're working for the competition. Like Alejandro works for the competition. And Matt says Alejandro will work for anyone who will let him loose to get the man responsible for killing his family. And when he says for killing his wife and throwing his daughter in a vat of acid, and you kind of see her like see what this is. And he's like, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. Like, we're dealing with the ugliest, most evil things you can think of. And when she says, I'm not going to stay quiet, I'm going to tell, I'm like, Kate, don't say that. Because like, you see how far these people are willing to go to cover their tracks. And I was like, please. He says that would not be a good idea, Kate. And I was like, Kate, please don't say anything. But like you said, now we've got some backstory on Alejandro. And now we understand like why he is who he is. And we understand why Matt and the team is working so hard to allow this, because by taking this heavy cartel out, it's going to help them control the drugs that are coming in through one place, and they can control it better. And everyone, it's kind of like everyone gets what they want. Alejandro gets to have vengeance, and we get the control of the drugs more so than we have now. Again, they're going about it in a way that is not lawful at all, but it seems like things have to be this ugly in this world. And Kate's seeing it for the first time.
All right.
Whoo, this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Rough. Unbelievable scene.
So Alejandro kills Silvio after he stops Diaz's vehicle and forces Diaz to drive to Alarcon's estate. On arrival, he quickly kills Diaz and Alarcon's guards, finding the family seated to dinner. He eventually kills Alarcon's wife and 2 sons first, and then kills Alarcon himself. So Alejandro is brutal here.
Yeah.
They're all having dinner, and it's a wide shot. So you see everybody at the table, and then you see Alejandro walk in, and then the maid sees him. He leaves her alone. He doesn't do anything to her.
She's the only one he leaves alone. He's like, nope.
And he walks past, and they still don't see him. And they don't see him until he gets right up on the table. They're all having dinner, and let's be clear here. Alarcon is not a good man. But this was a really cold way to end everybody. He tells him, every night you have families killed, and here you dine. Well, tonight should be no different. He kills the wife first and the boys right afterward, just within that same moment, right in front of Alarcon. And he tells them, he says, go ahead and finish your meal.
Yeah.
Finish your meal.
When he said that, dude, like, that was so brutal, because he wants him to kind of sit for a moment with what just happened. Like, he sits down and he says, he asks him, he goes, do your kids understand English?
Right.
And he says, no. And he goes, then we're going to speak in English. And he does the whole thing. And you have, we have our guy, Alejandro has his guy, and he goes like, it's nothing personal. He does that line. Like, there's still this arrogance, even though that he's in the face of this barrel, because he believes only he will be taken out. Because he even says at one point, not in front of my boys. He believes Alejandro is here for just him. And He's like, not in front of my boys. He goes, you think that they like, there aren't other people like me? Like, where do you think I learned it from? I learned it from, your people, like who you work
Right. It
for.
was a good
I
dialogue.
like it's a great and Alejandro's just listening, and he's reminding him to, tell your kids to eat. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea whatsoever that the family was also going to end up dying that night. I thought he was going to take out the father, and that was going to be it.
Right.
And again, when he says, like, not in front of my boys, and he's talking and he goes, what happened to your wife wasn't personal, and he doesn't mention the daughter. And Alejandro made sure to remind him, don't forget about my daughter. And he goes, oh, that's right, little hijita. And the wife, like, she makes a face and she knows, dude. Like, she just kind of like, oh my God, you killed his wife and daughter. And within a blink of an eye, like, blink and you miss it, he takes all three of them out, the mom and the two sons. Bam, 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 bam. Done. You don't see it. You just see the reaction in his eyes of what just happened. And, Alejandro just sits there with the gun aimed at him, and he says, go ahead and finish your meal. And it's one of the coldest lines in the movie. And he waits a beat, not going to take any more food, and then he empties the clip and he takes him out next.
Yeah, he shoots him, because I don't know, in a sick way, it was almost like, yeah, this is going to be your last meal, and I'm going to let you at least finish your meal, before I take you out, if you can actually eat after seeing, your family taken out. And clearly that wasn't going to happen. Okay, well, now it's time to go. So, but like you said, good, I wrote down the word cold too. It was a very cold
very,
way
very cold
of doing everything. And mind you, Alarcon is not a good man. Let's be honest.
No,
here.
this is, dude, this is the guy that's ordering families to be murdered,
right,
of a prosecutor,
right,
and God knows who else, while dining with his family like he's done nothing wrong. This is an evil individual.
right.
But my God,
Right. It was just, but to the family, it was a very cold thing for them.
Yes.
And then it was a cold line.
I felt really bad.
Yeah, I felt bad for the wife. She's crying the whole time. She knows, and
She knows.
yeah. So it takes out the whole family.
The two boys, man, they couldn't have been older than like 8 and 11. And I was like, again, I wouldn't have bet any money that they were gonna bite the dust. And I was shocked.
I was very shocked as well. On my first viewing, yes. Yeah.
Because I think because instinctively, once we hear why Alejandro is doing what he's doing, instinctively I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of rooting for you now. That guy killed your wife. He killed your daughter. I hope you get him. And then Alejandro gets there and kills the entire family. And it's like, dude, there's a darkness in you too, though. Like there's that's ugly. Like that is not, you know what I mean? Like there's no remorse. There's no sympathy. Like those boys did nothing wrong. But he was like, no, I need to hurt this man as much as I possibly can before I take his life. That I want him to witness me kill his family, and he's gonna sit with it for a moment. And I'm like, dude, like that's kind of heavy stuff, man.
The next day, Alejandro appears in Kate's apartment and forces her at gunpoint to sign a statement attesting that the entire operation was legal.
Yeah.
He drops these lines here now to bring it back to what you said earlier, Ricardo, about him saying, you remind me of someone close to me. He said, you look like a little girl when you're scared. You remind me of my daughter.
Yeah.
Let's pull this back here. I want to read this clear here. You look like a little girl when you're scared. You remind me of my daughter that they took from me. So she's crying, saying she can't sign it. And then he puts the barrel right under her chin.
Yeah.
It's forcing her to sign it or die. He even says it. He says, Kate, if you don't do this, it's suicide.
Yeah.
So now, to your point, we've seen how far Alejandro's willing to go. This is how far he's willing to go.
Yep.
A pretty awful scene because Kate's been kind of the protagonist for the movie, and she's been kind of the no, we got to do things by the book. Like I'm upset about the booby trap that happened, and my colleagues getting killed and such. I want to do what's right, but this is not right. The way that you people are going about things, and he's just like, well, this has to happen, and you're going to be the witness that says everything happened the way it was supposed to. And she's bawling. She's like, I
Yeah,
can't
dude.
sign that.
I
Like,
was
good.
so scared because she's
Emily
like, I
Blunt,
can't do
man.
it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God. Like she's like, I can't sign it. And he's like, please. And he's like, just sign it. He wipes away her tears.
Oh,
And
yeah, he's touching her
and
arm,
he's guiding her. He's like, he's like, again, it almost feels like he's trying to be sympathetic a moment. And he's like, I need you to sign it. And when she says no the second time and he puts the barrel under her chin, I was like, dude, he will kill you. Like there's this moral complexity that the movie focuses on. And again, once I heard what happened, I wanted to root for him. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you know what? Let's get this guy. But when you see that, like, there's a corruption, like this is corrupt. This is not how we do things. This is not how we want to do things. And ultimately, she realizes if she doesn't sign, she will die. And she ends up signing it. And it's just, you can see that it absolutely breaks her when she has to do that.
Yeah, because then she knows that she's complicit now, but it's to save her own life.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's move on here. So we're not done yet. This is pretty much our ending. So as he leaves, he assures her that she did the right thing. He goes outside, and then she goes to grab her gun. She's like, no, this is not the way it's going to end. So she goes to grab her gun, and she draws it on him. And as he leaves, she aims her pistol at him, and Alejandro turns to face her, but she cannot bring herself to pull the trigger.
Nope.
In Nogales, Silvio's widow watches her son's soccer game, which is briefly interrupted by the sound of distant gang machine guns.
Yeah.
And that's our movie here. So
it's
I want to do some initial thoughts here. And my initial thoughts on this rewatch were dealing with the ending, that because we want to see Alejandro pay for what he's done.
Yeah.
Because he's yes, he exacted revenge, but he's done so many disgusting things along the way, exacting on his revenge, and he's willing to pull a gun on one of the good guys, Kate.
Yeah.
To get her, and if she doesn't stop him, who's to say? We say this all the time. Villains aren't born; they're created.
Yeah.
And Alejandro was one of the good guys at one point.
Yeah.
But now it's like he's treading that line to get to the bad guys, to even sinking to their level. How long before he's actually considered to be one of the bad guys? And to me, that's probably what was going through her head as she saw him. Like, if I let this guy go, oh my gosh, what is he going to do? Because this isn't going to end here. We know it's not going to end here. And Del Toro makes a great choice here. At first, he's looking to the side and he sees her. He turns and faces her completely, giving her a free shot.
Yep.
Daring her.
If you're going to do it, do it. Yep.
And there's no way he could have known if she was going to do it or not. But I'd like to think that Alejandro, Del Toro's character, knew like she couldn't do it, because then she knows that they're going to come after her.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like, yeah, I think that's a valid statement, because he even makes a point. He tells her, because she's on the balcony, he goes, I don't think you should hang on balcony. It's something along the lines of like, you shouldn't be on balconies anymore, meaning that like she can easily become a target, especially for being involved in what they were involved in. He's like, oh, you shouldn't do balconies anymore, Kate. And I think that, when she goes out there, you can't help but feel awful for her, because she clearly comes off like an individual who got into this to do things the right way, to do the right thing, to stop these heinous, evil things from happening, but do it justified and by law. And she is seeing firsthand that doesn't exist. This idea of quote unquote justice. Like, what is justice? What is revenge? What is moral? What is gray? What is black and white? all of those things are thrown up in the air now, and she's not entirely sure what's what. She is complicit, even though she signed those papers to save her life. She is involved. Like, she is a part of this now. She is a part of this corrupt system. She has an opportunity to kill him, but at the end of the day, what will that do? The system is what it is at this point. And by killing him, as you said, like, it puts even more of a danger on herself. She's taking out Alejandro, who is, obviously someone who works for some very high-end people, and they will find her. It's a sad state of affairs, because she lost everything. Like, she loses in the end. Like, Kate loses.
Right.
There's no victory, there's no win. You could argue that the quote unquote bad guys win, because, like you said, it's a very valid point when you bring up the fact that, like, is Alejandro a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And he technically speaking, he lands more in the bad guy category. He's doing things that he's torturing individuals, but then you sit there and go, yeah, but these individuals work for the cartel, and they hurt people and they kill people. And you're like, yeah, but there's a proper way to do things. And then, you start to, you question your own morals as a viewer. How many times have we watched a movie where we see a terrible person and we're like, oh, I hope the good guy takes him out and do this and do that. You know what I mean? Like, we do that. But this movie focuses on justice and law and how things are supposed to operate. So we view it a little differently, because we're like, oh no, well, Kate is our protagonist. Kate is us, the audience. We are supposed to do it this way. And the entire ending just breaks your heart, because none of that exists. And Kate sees that firsthand, that none of this exists. Not only does it not exist, people like her are either they can't survive in this world unless they adapt to it. So she is now involved in this, and God only knows what happens to her in the future in her career. We don't know if she walks away. We don't know if she stays involved, but one way or another, like, she's a part of the system now, and she sees, unfortunately, straight on, that it is not what she thought it was.
So it looks like Sicario was a box office success to a certain extent. It was a lower budget movie, $30 million, and the box office ended up being $85 million.
Okay.
Sicario went on to be nominated for 3 Oscars.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, Denis getting some Oscar love here. It was Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, deservedly so.
So good.
And Best Sound Editing. So some technical categories here, but the cinematography too, though, because it's a lot of just the framing of just the wide shots, going in. And, we had a lot of static shots on people's faces, just capturing that emotion with them and such. But, to your point, I think the score was just so intense.
I love the score.
And made this movie. So once again, we're still dealing with lower budget and such. It wasn't until Denis' next movie, Arrival, where the big budget situation started entering in. But at this point, Denis still making some noise. He's working with a lot of names, like, these are some heavy hitters here: Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt, like Daniel Kaluuya. So he's starting to build his resume here with some all-star cast and such. Let's take a look at some trivia for Sicario here. When the team has entered the tunnel, Emily Blunt hits her head on the top of the tunnel, and director Denis Villeneuve said in an interview that he left the take in because it added realness to the mission and the film itself.
I felt it. As soon as I saw it happen, I was like, that was so authentic. I can guarantee that actually happened, and they kept it in.
Yeah. Whenever stuff like that happens, I give the actors credit for not breaking character.
Yes.
Because you never know what you can use and what you can't use, So whenever little quote unquote unplanned things like that happens, I always find that interesting. The border crossing scene was one of the most complicated parts of the production. This is probably why I have so much admiration for it. It took so long to shoot that a full-scale replica of the Juarez border crossing was built. Shooting at the real location would have required days of road closures, which
Oh,
would
yeah.
not have been practical. This is the United States-Mexico border, and you're going to
Yup.
shut the border down to film a movie?
Nope.
No.
Not going to happen.
No, it is not going to happen. So good on them for being able to do that. Let's give some love to Emily Blunt and Del Toro now. Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro both appeared in The Wolfman in 2010. At the end
Yes.
of the film, he tells her to move to a new town because this is now a land of wolves where she would not survive there. So, either directly or indirectly, Del Toro, who played the Wolfman,
Yep.
said that to her. So the Wolfman, it's no secret here. Ricardo and I, we watch horror. Ricardo
I
being the
love the Wolfman.
bigger
Yeah.
horror buff. But the appeal of Wolfman was that they went practical effects.
Yes.
And they went with an old school look for Del Toro to turn into the Wolfman. It was panned at the time, but now it's developed some sort of a cult following among the horror community. Del Toro just goes all in for that role.
Yes, he does.
At that performance. So I thought that was really cool that there was like a nice little call out there. Obviously unintentional to the Wolfman. For their fight scene, John Bernthal assured Emily Blunt that he was an experienced boxer and that she could hit him at full strength. So guess what? She did.
Yep.
She didn't. Those weren't staged punches or anything. Yeah.
It makes it better because it's authentic. Like if you can have that type of blessing and permission, you always want to have trust with your scene partner. And the fact that John was like, hey, you can lay into me, and she was able to do so, it just adds to the scene, and it works.
An estimated 90% of Alejandro's dialogue was cut from the film.
That's crazy.
Benicio del Toro and Denis Villeneuve agreed that there was a power in keeping the character silent. So I read somewhere else Del Toro actually pushed for it.
Yeah.
This is not something actors typically do. They want as much screen time as possible. But then after just the filming occurred, looking at the scripts, it's like, how about we cut this down? We need to make this character a lot more mysterious. And Denis and him worked together on it, and it worked because the character ended up being more mysterious, and it worked for actually the motivations once we found out.
Yeah, I love that Alejandro only speaks when he needs to.
Yeah,
that's it. And I love that, and that's what makes him mysterious. And you get very short answers from him, very short, very simple, and you're moving on. And like you said, it just adds to the intrigue and mysterious nature of the character.
Let's give some love to our cast here. We have Emily Blunt, who is technically our lead, as Kate Macer, an FBI special agent. We have Benicio del Toro as Alejandro, Mexican prosecutor turned assassin. We have Josh Brolin as Matt Graver, a CIA SAC/SOG officer. Daniel Kaluuya as Reggie Wayne, a rookie FBI special agent, Kate's partner. I did mention Victor Garber as FBI supervisory special agent, Dave Jennings. And I'll stop at John Bernthal as Ted, Phoenix PD police officer. So this movie just works for so many different reasons here. One of the major ones is just something Denis would go on to do, just working with such a stacked cast.
Oh, yeah.
Of experienced actors. There's a few Oscar nominations and wins between these people. Now anyway. And for me, just a great cast and just such an intense movie. Great writing, great score, but great cast once again.
Yeah, it's a solid cast. Everyone's on their A game. Benicio del Toro was so great with such minimal dialogue. So it's awesome that you brought up the fact that like they cut a lot of dialogue from the character and it works. And Benicio just has this presence on screen, man. whenever he's on screen, you feel it. It's like the scene itself immediately gets more tense because you don't know too much about him, and the way he presents himself is fantastic. Josh Brolin seems like he's having a blast in this movie because Matt is very just like laid back, nonchalant, again, chewing gum very loudly. What do you want to know? You can go home. I don't care. We don't care. Just very that. And Emily Blunt, we've always known that Emily Blunt is a terrific actor, and she can definitely hit that emotional range. And she does amazing as a protagonist here, and we feel for her. And we genuinely do, and she represents us, the audience. Daniel Kaluuya, like everybody, like Denis, has another stacked cast here, and it makes the movie's great. But when you have that, that great of a team on screen, it just makes it even better. And even for people like John Bernthal, who's only in the movie maybe around 10 minutes, if that, it was so awesome to see him here. And again, I'm a fan of John, and it was so great. It was a sad day to see him leave The Walking Dead, but I think we all knew that he was destined to do great film and things like that. So watching him pop up here and there in films, and just taking any role, whether it was big, whether it was small, it didn't matter. And that was so intriguing to watch. So I was happy to see John Bernthal in this, and the whole cast as a whole. But Benicio del Toro, man, he rocked me. He rocked me in this one.
And shout out to Daniel Kaluuya, because this happened a couple years before Get Out.
Yeah.
And Get Out was when it was like, okay,
that was the big one.
Here I am. And then he started getting cast way more after that. But yeah, just such a great cast. And, Emily Blunt, she started really getting some more work during that early to mid 2000s time. She, a lot of people remember her breakout role was The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
But, by the mid 2010s there, rather, she just started getting more work, and she's a bona fide movie star now, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But just a, great role for her, and just another, great cast for Denis Villeneuve here. So we're going to start winding down with our closing thoughts, and I am going to be selfish here and use our closing thoughts to give some love to Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, baby.
I am pretty sure this is the first Benicio del Toro movie we've ever done a breakdown for.
Man.
I'm pretty sure of it, because I'm looking at his filmography here, and
yeah,
this is an actor that has had a wonderful career.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. I thought he would have been maybe in a lot more things, a lot more awards considerations for sure. Over the years, he just has such a unique delivery, and pouring into each role that he does. His breakout role would be considered in 1995, The Usual Suspects. Just such a great, fun role there. And then I'm just going to highlight, the ones here that I've seen. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We have Snatch 2000, The Way of the Gun. Traffic, the Steven Soderbergh movie. He ended up winning the Oscar for that movie there. Let me just double check. Yep, he won Best Supporting Actor for Traffic. Excellent movie, by the way. And what was next here? He was in The Hunted.
Oh, yeah.
He was in The Hunted. Here we go. 21 Grams. Excellent role. That was Inarritu directed that movie, and that was Del Toro's second Oscar nomination. What else here? He was in Sin City.
Sin City, man, and he put on that. He's got on that like, oh come on, baby, you wanna come?
Yeah.
Got that crazy voice.
Shay Part 1 and Part 2, The Wolf Man. He would go on to play the Collector in the MCU, and he steals the scene every single time he's in there.
He's that dude.
And I'll stop right there. He's in a few other things. He has a role in The Last Jedi.
Yes, he does.
DJ, so just such an incredible career over the years. But I just love Benicio del Toro. He's just got such a unique look. For those of you that don't know, he is from the island of Puerto Rico.
That's right, baby.
You know,
That's right.
and just such an incredible actor, just as impactful speaking English as he does when he speaks Spanish. I
Mhm.
love his look. I love his delivery. He's so intense.
Yeah.
And he owns every single character. He's not afraid to go over the top. Yeah, just what a great career. And just to
Yeah.
me, this is one of the highlights, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is an amazing performance from Benicio del Toro. I would argue that um I would argue that Sicario is one of those performances that if you really want to see something really good from Benicio, it's this character Alejandro. Um I'm so excited again, and I mentioned it earlier, to be doing Denis Villeneuve's filmography. Sicario, I remember the first time I saw it, I was taken back at the nature of it all. Like, the cinematography is so good. The score is haunting. And again, he's got a stacked cast. Denis was proving time and time again, especially with a movie that wasn't really like a giant blockbuster budget. As you mentioned, we'll get there with Arrival. But up to this point, we had these like smaller budget films that were doing relatively well at the box office. I'm so grateful that this got Oscar recognition for cinematography and things like that. But I remember seeing this in I believe I saw this in the theater. I believe I saw this in the theater. And I remember watching it on the big screen and just kind of just like being like, wow, like the presentation, everything about it just landed. And I like how Denis is really just showcasing all of his talents. Again, we had Prisoners, we had Enemy, and we have Sicario. Like, those three, like just those three, like signify Denis was someone to really pay attention to. Again, did that along with Prisoners, did it with Enemies, and did it with Sicario, all on their own. But when you have those three back to back, it's kind of like, man, like this is a guy to watch. And it was so great to see him explore this world and have us as viewers can again kind of question things. I questioned myself. I questioned as a viewer, like, do I side more with the take that this is what needs to be done? Do I side with that? Am I more with Kate? Am I more like, no, we need to have some sort of moral compass to separate us from the animals? Like, when do we become the animals? And I like that Denis, in every movie so far that we've seen on this run through that we've done with Prisoners, where we see someone who essentially becomes a monster. In Enemy, we see this duality of a person. We see this ugly side of this person. And here we're seeing these characters like Alejandro, like Matt, that from the surface are agents, are prosecutors, CIA, DEA, all these people that we would say, yeah, these got to be straightforward men that are out there doing a good job and doing justice, and seeing a different side to them. And then having our character Kate go from this person that's like, no, I'm always going to walk a straight line, get caught up in this figure eight, where now she looks at herself and questions herself, like, oh my God, what did I do? What am I involved in? And I like that Denis has explored those themes in all of these movies so far, and then Sicario is doing it again. And I still I've seen this movie probably maybe 4 to 5 times. And each time I watch it, I continue to ask myself, I'm like, man, do I side with them a little bit? Do I understand why? Because again, Matt, the whole movie is like, this is how it is. This is how it is. This is how it has to be done. Alejandro has that line in the beginning of the movie, goes, listen, nothing's going to make sense to you. You're going to look at everything and think everything is wrong, but at the end, you will understand. And I love that Denis kind of leaves it open at the end, kind of like this idea of like, well, it's up to you. How do you feel as a viewer? Like, do you side more with Kate? Do you side with the idea of like, no, we have to do everything we can possible to control what we can, to take out who we can, these evil people? So I like that Denis explores those themes, and Sicario was no different. So I'm looking forward to keep watching the filmography that Denis has. I know we're going to get more great casts and more great films to talk about. But Denis absolutely one of those directors you want to look out for. So anytime we're going to talk about one of his movies, I'm easily very excited.
So Sicario was written by Taylor Sheridan,
Mhm.
and the studio Lionsgate, they were so impressed with the final product that they ordered a sequel.
Yeah.
And Denis was initially involved, and unfortunately, it didn't work out for him to stay on for
Yeah.
one reason or another. He was just fine. Obviously, he went on to
Mhm.
make Arrival,
Yep.
but they ended up doing the sequel, Sicario: Dia of the Salado, and that was directed by Stefano Solima. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Del Toro was the lead, if not the co-lead with
Yes.
Josh Brolin.
Yep.
You know, and
Yep.
that's the move after you make with this one movie with the person that's so mysterious
Mhm.
and such, and you know you're not going to go wrong with making Benicio del Toro your lead. You
Nope.
know, so and then I even read here that there's a third Sicario film, Sicario
Yes.
Capos is coming out. So
It's been heavily rumored for a while. I'm waiting for it.
yeah, so we're gonna live in a world where there's a Sicario trilogy one day,
I
but
want it. I want it.
you know, but it started with Denis, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, it's good stuff here. And I'm I didn't see anywhere that this was. Let me take one quick peek here. No, I want to say it was an original.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to say it was an original. So you know, shout out to I'm hoping it's original. I apologize
Yeah.
if I'm incorrect on that, but you know, shout out to you know, to Denis and Taylor Sheridan for, you know, putting out this great film here that just so intense, just another solid thriller from him. And that's the thing. You know, you mentioned this. It starts becoming like an almost a trademark for Denis. Just, you know, stacked cast, solid score. You
Yeah, dude,
know,
that score, man.
you know, so and it's funny because it almost mirrors, and writing too as well, which are the three components, you know, with our favorite director, Christopher Nolan.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, that's what makes a good director. Like they can bring all these elements together and just give you these beautiful films. Great writing, great score, great cast, you know, and then so on and so forth. You know, your cinematography, et cetera, et cetera. But just those three, you know, big components there. So um, I'm excited because our next one is Arrival, and
Dude, that's a good one.
Arrival's an experience to say the
Oh yeah.
least. And we're gonna break it down for everybody here. So, alrighty, folks, that was the Panel Bros official breakdown for Sicario. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at the Panel Bros, we'd appreciate it. Also, if you could please let us know in the comments below how you felt about our breakdown for Sicario, and let us know how you felt about Denis Villeneuve's Sicario. Please let us know in the comments below. Please stay tuned. We are going to continue. Excuse me. We are going to continue with our Denis Villeneuve film. Ooh, I'm stuttering here. Our Denis Villeneuve filmography, and we are doing Arrival next. It's going to be a good one,
Yeah.
folks. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.